You might have heard in 1993 famous Latur earthquake in Maharashtra. Some of you might have heard about it. Because that time I just joined after leaving my job, earlier job in NITK Surathkal. I was faculty member there in NITK Surathkal in the Department of Structure, Civil Engineering and Structural Engineering. I resigned and went to Government of India, and I joined the housing department there as a senior officer. That time, as soon as I joined after 6 months in the month of September, there was a huge earthquake in Latur. That was the first time I saw an earthquake, big disaster in life. So it was so confusing, so much confusion in the among the officers, what to do, how to do, all that. There were so many problems. So that time in '93 there was no law also in place for disaster management. As you are all aware, so many that earthquake happened, but before that also there were many disasters in India. Like 1984, Bhopal gas tragedy was there. You all heard about it. Cyclone was there in 99, super cyclone in Odisha. Even then also there were no laws available except one or two states in North India, like Odisha, Gujarat, and Bihar and all. This was a big problem in India, how to manage the disasters. Latur earthquake opened my eyes actually. Most of the houses had collapsed. About more than 15 to 20,000 people were dead actually in that incident. When the administration was unable to manage the disaster immediately, we call 1 hour as golden hour, but there was no such immediate response by the government. Many people were struggling in the hospitals. No, not adequate facilities in the hospital. So these problems were there always in the disasters earlier. So Latur earthquake actually made the Government of India and Bureau of Indian Standards, you call it as ISI earlier, they just initiated the process of formulating and bringing out and publication on the building code for masonry buildings. That was the first time the Government of India thought of bringing how the building should be constructed, because it was not the earthquake which killed the people, it was the buildings which have killed the people, so many people there. Poor construction, poor building materials have actually killed the people, not the earthquake. Earthquake was of the magnitude of about 6.4 on the Richter scale, but the deaths were many, many. If the same earthquake had to happen in Japan or some other developed countries, I don't think so many people would have been killed in such a situation. So the kind of construction actually led to the death, so many deaths in the Latur, Maharashtra earthquake. So with that preamble, I would like to start this presentation. You can always ask me any questions. I'll start with this session will be up to 10:15, 11:15, I think. Later on, there will be a break for about 20 minutes, I think. Followed by that, up to 1:15, my session will be there, I think. So this is the structure of the session. I would like to cover in this session the basic principles of disaster management. Very important for all of you because you are all recently joined. Then I will discuss a little bit about the law, legal framework in India for managing the disasters. Because you should know the law. There is a Disaster Management Act 2005. You must know about it and what is the purpose behind it, why it has come, what are the provisions made in that law. And then we will discuss some of the experiences, types of disaster management cycle, and some experiences of past disasters. What is the vulnerability profile of India and Karnataka and other states, districts, and what are the experiences in disasters. Some of the case studies like, Kodagu disasters, Ballari building collapse, and some other disasters also we can discuss. So based on my experience, I would like to give you some insights into the entire disaster management and you will be able to deliver a similar session or a similar topic in your own institution to develop other faculty members and other subordinates, other colleagues, so that they will also take on the subject in their own institutions as well as universities. That is the purpose of this session actually. We are giving training to the government officers here and volunteers also sometimes, like all Group A and B officers, Indian Administrative Service officers, Karnataka Administrative Service officers are being trained by us through our Center for Disaster Management on all other aspects of disaster management throughout the year, both at the state level, at the district level, taluk level, and at the Gram Panchayat level. So training programs are organized at every level. In addition to the training programs, we organize mock drills, how to manage the disasters, and we are also conducting action research, case studies, documentation of best practices, etc. in our institution, and many of the books which you published research papers, case studies are already on the website of the Administrative Training Institute, Mysore. So you can always refer them. So with this background and with this purpose, I would like to start my presentation with a definition of disaster management. So what is the definition of disaster? I took this definition from the Disaster Management Act only. So I told Disaster Management Act 2005 is very important. It is a preamble to the entire disaster management. So on 23rd of December, exactly on 23rd of December 2005, Parliament has enacted a law called Disaster Management Act 2005. It has got about 11 chapters and 79 sections. So in the first chapter itself, they have defined what is disaster management. So according to the definition, it is a continuous and integrated process of planning, organizing, coordinating, and implementing measures which are necessary for prevention of the danger or threat of any disaster, mitigation or reduction of the risk, capacity building, preparedness, prompt response, severity or magnitude and evacuation, rescue, relief, and rehabilitation and reconstruction. So you can classify these stages into pre-disaster stages and post-disaster stages. Now I'll ask you a simple question: what are the items which comes under the pre-disaster phase, and what are the phases that could come under the post-disaster phase? In the management of the disaster, we have two phases. One is pre-disaster phase, other one is post-disaster phase. So can anyone one of you tell me what are the pre-disaster phases and what are the post-disaster phases in the disaster management planning stage, disaster management? Could anybody elaborate on this? And one of you? You can switch on your speaker and you can speak. Among these items, as soon as the disaster strikes, what are the activities we take up, professors?
Sir, maybe under prevention of danger or threat would be one.
Very nice.
Preparedness.
Very good. It is here. Preparedness is here. Prevention is here. Yeah. Then.
Second one. Yeah, I think these two, I guess. And then for the post, I think mitigation, capacity building, prompt response, evacuation, uh, rehabilitation, probably severity or magnitude assessment may be under pre, I guess. I don't know, sir. I'm just trying
Okay.
to. Yeah.
Okay, Professor Sangeeta, thank you
Yeah.
very much for speaking out. Very nice to listen to you. At the same time, what I'm saying is pre-disaster. Before the disaster, what you do is,
Yes.
you are right actually. Prevention is part of the pre-disaster stage. And you said preparedness is part of the pre-disaster stage. Very nice.
Yes.
Mitigation is not pre-disaster, post-disaster.
Okay.
Mitigation is also pre-disaster stage actually.
Yeah.
Disaster,
Reduction of risk.
or it is also meaning disaster risk
Correct.
reduction.
Yes.
Okay, disaster risk reduction. So any measures that are taken to reduce the impact of any disaster is called mitigation.
Yes.
Mitigation efforts are taken before the disaster, even post-disaster also, but major activities will be taken before the disaster. Capacity building means training all those activities, men, machine, materials, training of the human resource, formation of teams, preparation of plans, etc. Okay, that capacity building like equipment, machine materials, boats, fire extinguishers, ropes, stretchers. You may name anything that is required by the disaster teams. That is called capacity building, including money. Money. So all this is part of the capacity building. So does it take place before the disaster or after the disaster?
Before, I guess, sir.
It is throughout the year actually. Okay. So you
Yeah.
need to prepare
Prepare. Yeah.
continuously,
Yeah. Correct.
not only before the disaster, even post disaster also it will continue. Okay. Preparedness, as you rightly told, it is part of the pre-disaster phase, and again we start re-preparing after the post disaster and to address the gaps in the existing preparedness plan based on the experiences and lessons learned. That is pre-disaster stage actually, pre-disaster phase. You are right actually. Response you already told, it is after the disaster. So response, you said, response, madam, you said the response is a post-disaster phase. You already told evacuation, search and rescue, relief, and
Yes.
rehabilitation, reconstruction are part of the post-disaster phases. You are exactly right. What is left in this? What is left is it is there, you
Yeah.
said
The assessment,
uh,
severity and magnitude assessment.
you said that severity and magnitude
Assessment.
assessment is
Yeah.
it part of the pre-disaster or post-disaster?
Magnitude assessment is post, I guess.
So as soon as the disaster
Assessing
strikes,
the.
you are right
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
As soon as the disaster strikes, what the government officers will do is we will go to the field site. I will go and assess the losses and damages. How much is the loss? How much is the damage? Like loss of life, loss to the properties, loss to the environment, loss to the infrastructure services like roads, telecommunication, health infrastructure, water, etc., etc. And we calculate the total, we will estimate the total cost of losses and damages. That is post-disaster. You are right, actually. And we'll submit the report to the government for funding. And as soon as the fund comes, what we will do? As soon as the fund comes from the government, what we will do? After mobilizing the resources from government and other sources, what we will do is we'll start the work of rehabilitation and reconstruction, like construction of houses, construction of roads, construction of bridges, etc., etc. Okay, that's what we take up. So if I start this whole thing, if you are suppose all your professors, one team is called to manage a disaster in the district headquarter. So what is the first step? What is the second step? What should be the third step? You must know, because they may ask even because under there is one important thing I missed to tell you. Prime Minister's 10-point agenda is there in disaster management. In India, we have 10-point agenda. Prime Minister 10-point agenda, PM 10-point agenda. It is called. You can note it down. In that 10-point agenda, one of the agenda is networking of the universities and educational institutions for effective disaster management in the country. This is what is the agenda. So promoting effective networking of the universities and educational institutions for effective management of disasters. So the government, under this agenda, our state government is having networking with the universities and educational institutions. We are already having networking with some institutions, universities already. Like NIMANS is having networking with us. We have networking with the National Institute of Disaster Management. We have networking with some state universities, like that. So you can also be part of our networking. So that is one of the agenda. Therefore, as a professor, as a assistant professor or professor, you will be actively involved in the disaster management activities, not only as part of the educational curriculum, but also as part of the overall disaster management and as part of the state government initiatives and as part of the disasters actually happening in the sites, whether it is flood, whether it is earthquake, whether it's fire incident, or further cyclones, or any other disaster, chemical and industrial nuclear disasters, or for that matter, any other disaster, man-made or natural. Okay. So I just wanted to make it very clear. Why is it very important for all of you to be part of the disaster management, not just part of the curriculum or syllabus or academic purpose, but also as part of the overall disaster management by the state, by the as part of the government initiatives. We can also be in the real situation also. Okay, in the field also. Clear now? What is disaster management? Are you clear now, all of you?
Yes, sir.
If there is any doubt, you can always ask me, because this is very important part of the disaster management. Now I'll ask you what are those 11 chapters and 79 sections briefly. Do you want to know law? Little more about the law? What are the important provisions in the Disaster Management Act? So this is in the first chapter actually. They mentioned like hazard. What is hazard? What is disaster? What is vulnerability? What is mitigation, preparedness, and then risk? All that data they have defined actually in the first chapter. I told you, there are 11 chapters. In the first chapter, this is the definition actually. Start with disaster management. The second one is what is hazard. Can anybody tell what is hazard and disaster? The difference between the two? Hazard and disaster?
Sir, actually, hazard becomes disaster, sir. Uh, yeah, disaster is a post stage, whereas hazard is a vulnerability stage, sir.
You are right, actually. You are nearer to the accuracy. Anything, any situation in and around you which poses danger. If it is posing danger to us, to the property, to the infrastructure, to the life, human life or wildlife, there is anything that is posing danger, it is called hazard. Do you agree?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, what is disaster now? Think about, all of you, please think. What is disaster then?
So, disaster, sir, it's a situation when hazard overrules the situation and there is a loss of life and property, sir.
Right, actually. According to the disaster management, according to the definition given in the Disaster Management Act. So the definition is very clear. I'm going to state it now. Please note it in case it is necessary for you. Otherwise, just listen to me carefully. Any calamity, catastrophe, mishap arising out of natural or man-made causes, or by negligence or by accident, which causes large-scale loss of life, destruction of properties, or degradation of environment, and which is beyond the coping capacity of the local community of the affected area. This is the definition given in the Disaster Management Act. And you said some other definition, but many people say many things. Some people say any sudden event causing loss of life. but it is not just sudden, it can also be progressive, slow. Like drought is a progressive and slow event. It is also coming under the definition of disaster. Okay. So disaster can not only be a sudden event, but it can also be progressive events. So now you know what is the difference between hazard and disaster. Hazard is, I can say in simple words, anything that is there already, which has not converted itself into a harmful situation. It can be chemical factory, which may have chemical hazards. It can be nuclear, it can be industrial. So if you put all the three of them in one category, chemical, industrial, nuclear hazards, we can call them. And what could be the other hazards in and around us in our life? The hazards that are emanating from the earth, below the ground, like earthquake and landslides, even mining related disaster hazards. That we can classify them as geological. Do you agree? Geological. So is a second group. Now, what could be the third possible group under the hazards? Anybody? You already know about COVID-19. It is a pandemic. It was an international emergency disaster. SARS,
Man-made, sir.
dengue. I am talking about biological hazards. So biological hazards include all kinds of diseases to the animals, to the human beings, to the crops, etc., etc. Like dengue, chikungunya, mpox, monkeypox, Casnur forest disease, and many other diseases that are coming up now in future also. So all of them are part of the third category, that is biological hazards. What could be the possible other category? Any other possibility? I told you geological. I told you biological. One more is chemical, industrial, and nuclear. Three I covered. What could be the fourth one? Think about it. Any other hazards you can expect in and around us? Geological is over. Biological is over. Chemical, industrial, nuclear is over. Any other hazards? Think about it.
Man-made disasters, sir.
Man-made hazards are there. Broadly they are classified into two types. That is man-made and natural.
Blind ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಆರ್ಫನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್
ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬನ್ನಿ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗು ಕೆಳಗಡೆ.
So what we can say is third and fourth. Fourth is basically water and climate related hazards. Or you can say hydrometeorological hazards. What do you mean by hydrometeorological hazards? Anybody? Hydro means water.
ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮುಂದೋಗಿ.
Meteorological means most of the hydrometeorological means water and climate related hazards are due to what? Climate changes, climate impact, climate change, global warming, etc., etc. Okay. So for example, severe flood is there means what? Due to heavy rainfall or due to cyclone. Now cyclones are increasing due to climate change. Heat wave, do you think heat wave is also a disaster hazard? Heat wave is also a hazard because it is causing a lot of other biological hazards, disasters, like diseases, diarrhea, malaria, typhoid, all kinds of problems will come due to heat wave, heat strokes, like that. Like, cold waves, heat waves, avalanches, glacier, all those things are also climate induced hazards. So all this group can be classified as hydrometeorological hazards. Now I covered all the four. What is left now? Somebody said man-made something. Some professor has told, man-made hazard something. So all other hazards other than these four will be put into the fifth category, that is accident-related hazards. Just name few of them, accident-related hazards. Anybody? Mr. Chetri, can you tell? Or anybody else? Other than these four. Please be focused here. Leave your work. This is one of the most important topics that you can continue in your universities and colleges. What is the fifth one? Possibly. I covered already four. Is there any other hazard other than these four?
So man-made would be, sir, nuclear disaster, sir.
I already covered that. The chemical, nuclear, industrial
Yes,
in the
sir.
third category. Other than these three, other than these four, can you expect some of the disasters in a day and night in our life? Recent Kumbh Mela, what happened there?
Extensive population, sir.
No,
So
Kumbh
the
Mela,
number of
mass
the
gathering.
number
was
of
there.
people, mass gathering, the number of people gathered at the limited time, it
Stampede,
was
sir.
more.
No, what
Stampede.
happened as a result of it? Gathering number of people will not cause any, it will not be a hazard. But as a result of gathering, what happened there? Stampede happened.
Stampede occurred.
Stampede.
Stampede occurred,
Traffic.
sir.
Stampede has happened and many people died. That stampede
And
is
other
a
thing is
hazard.
traffic, sir.
Stampede is a hazard due to mass gathering. Festival is there, then festival related hazards. If there is any festival, then there can be possibility that there may be some incidents. Then buildings like educational institutions are the hospitals are there, bridges are there, flyovers are there. Many such buildings have collapsed in the past, and they are collapsing also due to so many reasons. Do you think these are also part of the accident related hazards? Yes. Okay.
Definitely, sir.
Yeah. So then I went to Nainital one fine day. There was a collapse of the school building, school buildings in one of the classrooms. Because just now I went there to conduct DTS DOT programs, direct trainer skills and design of training programs. One fine day that school collapsed due to heavy rainfall and landslide. Some 23 children were severely injured and some 7 children died immediately in the classroom. Is it not a disaster? It is a disaster. And the principal of the college, headmaster and class teacher were jailed and they were suspended under the Disaster Management Act 2005, section number 51 to 60 of the Disaster Management Act. So what is this hazard? Is it comes under the fifth category? This disaster?
Definitely, sir. They come under the fifth category, man-made.
Man-made. Okay. So like this.
I would like to quote the reason, sir, because these days the engineers are just graduates, sir. They don't know how to construct the exact buildings. If you look into our old architects, where there are buildings of 100, 200 years, which have not been damaged just a little bit. But today's building, if it is 5 years old, definitely it will be gone. Most of the cases.
Yeah, you're partly correct actually, sir. But what happened is in that classroom, it was landslide prone. This particular college was in the landslide prone area. So it was already warning was given by the structural engineer to the college principal that this particular classroom has already developed a crack, very structural crack. It may collapse. Please don't conduct any classes in this particular classroom. But due to shortage of classrooms, I think they continue to conduct the classes in the same classroom. On that fateful day, it collapsed and many students died. So this is also another thing. It is not like, blaming structure engineers. What is happening here is, the bunga culture. The nomads, they used to construct some bungas earlier, long ago. They used to build their own houses. Okay, like dome shape and circular shape. They put up something there and they will live without any problem. When earthquake or anything happens, then nothing is to happen. But as you said just now, the present day engineers construct big buildings, but they tend to collapse. I don't agree with completely with that statement. But do you want to live in a bunga? One thing. So even engineers, partly they are aware of all these planning aspects and construction aspects. So sometimes, particularly in public buildings, they ignore certain building norms and parameters. As a result, many buildings tend to collapse over a period of time. Okay, let us go to the next one. In the law itself, there are 11 chapters I told you. In the first chapter, I already explained the definition, etc. And then second chapter is having the formation of National Disaster Management Authority. It is called NDMA. It is headed by the Prime Minister of India. Okay. In the second chapter, they mentioned about the formation of National Disaster Management Authority, and it has been formed. Prime Minister is the chairperson for that, and not more than 9 members are there as a members of the NDMA. To assist that, there is a National Executive Committee, which will be the advisory body for the NDMA. NDMA formulates all the policies at the national level for the disaster management. They also formulate National Disaster Management Plan, which has already been published in 2016. It is there in their website. And also they have 2009 National Policy on Disaster Management. They have issued guidelines to all types of guidelines to all the states on different disasters, how to manage the disasters. So even funding also they decide. So all these things are done by the NDMA at the national level. In the third chapter, on the similar lines, every state is having State Disaster Management Authority. Who will be the chairperson for this? Like Prime Minister, the chairperson for NDMA. Here, the Chief Minister is the chairperson for the SDMA, and other ministers are members. To assist them, there is a SEC, like NEC, State Executive Committee, headed by Chief Secretary. They formulate state policies, state plans. For example, from our center, we have prepared State Disaster Management Plan to the state government, like that. Under the third chapter, we have District Disaster Management Authority. Can you tell me who will be the chairperson for this? Anybody? Can anybody? Who will be the chairperson for District Disaster Management?
The district, sir? The DC, District Commissioner?
Yes. It is called Deputy Commissioner in Karnataka. In some states, it is called District Collector. Okay. So, District Collector or the Deputy Commissioner or the District Magistrate is the chairperson for District Disaster Management Authority, DDMA. So, for them, for what they are doing in the district, all the departments, even educational institutions come under his purview, and he can form teams like search and rescue teams, first aid team, advisory committees, task forces for managing the disasters in the district. So he can also order any department in the district to come and help them during the disasters. He can order any resources from any department to manage the disasters. So that all powers are given to District Disaster Management Authority, headed by the District Collector. Okay. So it is DDMA. So under section number 31, they have to prepare the District Disaster Management Plan also every year. They have to revise it and prepare it every year. That is part of the District Disaster Management Authority. And under the fourth chapter is over. Fifth chapter, we have measures to be taken by the government. So in the 5th chapter, what they said is what measures to be taken before, during, and after the disaster, and what are the procedures to be followed by different departments. They have written there. In the 6th chapter, they have mentioned about the local authorities. What do you mean by local authorities? Municipalities, Panchayati Raj institutions like Gram Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, Jilla Panchayat, etc. And then urban development authorities, all kinds of municipalities come under the local authorities. Recently, about a week back, an amendment bill is placed before the Parliament to amend the Disaster Management Act to form City Disaster Management Authority also under the chapter number 6. So they will be able to manage local disasters specific to their jurisdiction by training their employees, forming the teams, equipping themselves with all the machine materials, etc. So this is under chapter number 6. Under chapter number 7, we have National Institute of Disaster Management located in Delhi and Vijayawada, where you can go and have advanced training if you want to have. Chapter number 8, we have National Disaster Response Force, NDRF it is. So we have in Karnataka, Bangalore Regional Center, we have Vijayawada also, and we have Guntur also, Pune also, everywhere it is located, and they will come and help at any during the crisis situations. Like they regularly come to Kodagu in Madikeri disaster, Kodagu disaster, Belagavi and Mangalore, etc. So they'll come and help us during any disaster situation. That is called National Disaster Response Force. And then in the next chapter, it is 9th chapter, it is related to funds, accounts, and audit. So you may ask me a question, where is the fund available for managing any disasters, whether it is related to mitigation or related to response? Where is the fund available? Under the 15th Finance Commission of the Government of India, about 1.62 lakh crore rupees has been earmarked by the Government of India for different states. They have a formula 30% to the poverty and the remaining 70% to the notified and local disasters. And under that formula, they are releasing every year the National Disaster Risk Management Fund, National State Disaster Risk Management Fund in the ratio of 75 to 25. 75% funds comes from central government, 25% fund comes from state government. Every year they are releasing the funds to the state governments. In turn, state governments will release funds to the district administration for effective management of disasters in the district. It is 9th chapter, and under the 10th chapter, we have offenses and penalties. It comes under section number 51 to 60. Okay, 51 to 60. Please mention that offenses and penalty. What offenses? I told you just now one school example where principal and others were put behind bars due to the collapse of the school classroom. That comes under section number 51, 52, 53 up to 60. So any government official who is ignorant and negligent about the possible hazards will be, if he has not taken action against that, against to prevent the disaster in his office, he shall be prisoned for an year. It is there. Again, anybody, whenever the government officers are doing their work during the disaster situations, anybody who is coming and obstructing, putting barriers, obstructing the functioning of the government officers during the disaster shall be imprisoned for a period of 1 year. It is the offense. Anybody who is not willing to work during disaster crisis situations shall be imprisoned for a year. Without the competent authorities, if he is taking leave and go, he will be imprisoned for a year. Similarly, anybody who is heading the private organization, like anybody in the private also, they are also liable for punishment and fine. Again, anybody who is misusing the funds released for the purpose of disaster management in the government or private shall be imprisoned for a period of 2 to 3 years. Anyone who is claiming compensation by submitting wrong, illegal documents, false documents shall be imprisoned for a period of 2 to 3 years. Again, anybody who is spreading false rumors about unlikely harms, unlikely disasters, false rumors and spreading such rumors will be imprisoned for a minimum of 1 year. So these are given in the section number 51 to 60 in the Disaster Management Act, chapter number 10. Okay, so these are the chapters which are given in the Disaster Management Act 2015. In the last chapter, 11th chapter, it is miscellaneous items. In that, one or two sections, if I want to mention, under section number 61, there shall be no discrimination on the grounds of caste, creed, religion, or gender while providing relief or rehabilitation or any stage of the disaster management. So that is very well mentioned there. So if anybody is violating this, they will be punished. So there is section number 71 also, delegation of powers. It is given there. Anyway, DC can delegate the power to any other subordinate officer or any other competent officer for managing the disasters. Not only at the district level, even at the state and center also, they can delegate the power to other officers for managing the disasters. And we have section number 66 in chapter number 11, where they mention that government can acquire any private properties for managing the disasters. For example, hotels, lodgings, hospitals, private hospitals, private machines, materials can be acquired by the government for managing the disasters on the basis of rent. Okay. So these are the 11 chapters in brief. I just told you everybody, please remember that there is a Disaster Management Act 2005 and all of us, including all of you, are coming under the purview of the Act. In case of any violations of the provisions of the Disaster Management Act, you are liable for punishment. So please remember there shall be no offenses by any of us in the disaster management area. It is a very serious matter because many people are ignoring the hazards until they become disasters. As a result, they are going to be punished. They are likely to be punished if they do not prove that in the court of law, that due diligence and also due to lack of ignorance or due to lack of ignorance or knowledge that disaster has happened. You will not be able to prove in the court of law that it has happened without your knowledge, because you are part of the office, head of the office. How come you keep quiet, negligent, ignorant about the possible hazard becoming disaster? Are you clear now, sir, about the law?
Yes, sir.
Are you clear? Are you clear, any one of you? Please speak, somebody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How many chapters
sir.
are there?
11 chapters, sir.
What is the chapter number 10 says?
Offenses and penalties.
Very nice, very nice. I'm very happy that at least you remembered it. Okay, very good. What about chapter number 9?
Amount to control the
audit
director.
accounts.
Very nice, very nice. Good, good, good. Very good. What about section number 71 says? Delegation of power or authority to other officers by the DDMA, SDMA, like that. Okay. Even NDMA also can authorize or can delegate the power to other officers. For example, in COVID-19, the Home Secretary delegated his power to the Health Secretary because Health Secretary was supposed to manage the COVID-19. It is health disaster, like that. In district, DC can delegate the power to additional deputy commissioner or SP or the CEO of the Jilla Panchayat to manage the disaster because DC cannot manage everything. Okay. So this is how the provisions have been made, and you can please remember all of them because it is a serious matter. That's why I first in the beginning itself I mentioned there is a law. All of us are bound by the law, and we are supposed to obey the provisions of the law. Next. So I already told you types of disasters. So there are 5 types of disaster. I already mentioned it just now. Just to recap that, we have water and climate related disasters, we have geological disasters, biological disasters, and also chemical, industrial, nuclear disasters. And last one is accident related disasters. I may pose some questions at the end in your multiple choice questions. Some of you please remember all of them very carefully because you have to answer those questions. Okay. So what is disaster management cycle then? Once you know the disaster management, what are the different stages of disaster? First, what happens? Disaster happens. This is the first step. Before that, what will be there? Hazard will be there. Hazard becomes disaster. Once the disaster happens, what we are supposed to do? All of us in the district administration, they will have to do the search and rescue operation. Because first 1 hour is golden hour, we call it as. So immediately teams will be deployed. They will go and do the search and rescue operations in the flood, in the cyclone, in the building collapse, in fire incidents, etc. and all other kinds of disasters. Okay. First 1 hour is golden hour, you say. Next step is, once the search and rescue is done, they will be evacuated to the relief shelters and relief management is done. What is relief management? It is basically medical relief, food, utensils, etc., etc. So all that facility will be given. Accommodation, food, boarding, lodging, everything will be provided free of cost in the relief shelters. It is called relief management. It may take up to 3 weeks, sometimes up to 3 months also, until they are given permanent rehabilitation or until they are sent back to their original places. Okay. What is the next step? Once the relief is done, we do the recovery. What do you mean by recovery? So bringing the normalcy back to bringing back to the normalcy. For example, there is a road damage, but it has to be recovered back to the normal condition. Similarly, there is a bridge which is broken. We have to bring it back to the original condition. There are some colleges, schools, etc. collapsed partially. We have to repair them back, bring them back to the normalcy so that all the schools and colleges are opened within 24 hours. So that is what is known as recovery. Then what will be the next step? Once your recovery is done, during these phases, we do the loss and damage assessment also. But loss and damage assessment, once you submit the report to the government, they will release the funds and will start to the rehabilitation work. What do you mean by rehabilitation? Constructing houses, providing all the facilities, infrastructure, etc., etc. Once the rehabilitation is done, what is the next step? Reconstruction, where livelihood activities, even all other activities will be considered in the reconstruction. What is the next step? Once again, the disasters may happen in the next year or next few months. Again, we have to go for preventive measures. So prevention is something which may be taken immediately after the disaster also, before the disaster also. See that no disaster again strikes. So you have to take some preventive measures so that disasters will not happen again. For example, there is a road which is causing all the time accidents. We need to arrest it by realigning the road or by constructing a wall so that the cars and buses will not fall into the river or valleys. So that is prevention. What is mitigation? Next step is mitigation. What are the steps in the mitigation? Anybody? Actually, this mitigation is very, very important. Recently, we had a meeting with the government of Karnataka where our principal secretary said that there is a fund available unutilized for mitigation. What is that fund? Called as State Disaster Mitigation Fund, National Disaster Mitigation Fund. That fund is available, but people are not submitting project proposals to release the funds. So fund is unutilized. So people are government departments and many government universities or whoever it may be, they are not submitting the proposals for availing the financing from the government. So it is released under the 15th Finance Commission already. More than 1,000 crore rupees is lying unused and we are not using. So what is mitigation then? Mitigation means reducing the disaster measures taken to reduce the impact of disaster risk. So like structural measures and non-structural measures can be initiated. What do you mean by structural mitigation? Structural mitigation incorporates rejuvenation of water bodies, reconstruction of buildings, foundations, etc., structural aspects of the building if they are unsafe, schools, unsafe colleges, unsafe hospitals, unsafe bridges, unsafe dams, unsafe canals, etc. can be provided with funds for structural mitigation, that is retrofitting, etc. Okay. What do you mean by non-structural mitigation? Anybody? I told about structural mitigation. What do you mean by non-structural mitigation? Manjunath sir, what is non-structural mitigation? Who is speaking there? What is non-structural mitigation? Can anybody give some light on that? Universities and colleges can do this in a larger scale. Structural mitigation, you may not be able to do much because you are not engineers, all of you. What about non-structural mitigation? You can take up on a larger scale. What is that? Non-structural mitigation means basically early warning systems. If you install alarming systems, training, education, pamphlets, do's and don'ts, standard operating procedures, drawing competition, essay competitions, stage plays, mock drills. You can take it up in the colleges and schools. So that is parts of the non-structural mitigation about different disasters. For example, you can conduct earthquake mock drill. You can conduct fire mock drill. You conduct evacuation drill. So all those parts are part of the mitigation, non-structural mitigation. For both the structural mitigation and non-structural mitigation, government has got some funds for sanctioning. So you can get the funds provided, you submit the proposal to the government. What is the government here? Department of Disaster Management in the state government as part of the revenue department. Okay. What is the next step then? It is preparedness. So preparedness again you have to do even after mitigation prevention. So next disasters may again come, floods will come, drought will come. So you have to prepare for the next disasters. So realign our preparedness plan, disaster management plans, revise them every year. See that disaster risks are reduced every year. So by 2030, as per the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction framework, we will have to reduce the disaster risk to zero by 2030. Because in 2015, in Sendai in Japan, all 192 countries went there and they have agreed to reduce the disaster risk to zero by 2030. Just like Paris Agreement, which was signed in 2015 to reduce the temperature, to restrict the temperature to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Similarly, one more agreement that was signed in 2015. Can anybody tell me which were the 2030 agendas? There is a coherence between the three agreements. I already told you Paris Agreement. I already just now mentioned about the Sendai framework for DRR, that is disaster risk reduction. What is the one more one? In 2000, the international agreement signed in 2015. Sustainable Development Goals. How many Sustainable Development Goals are there? 17. So all the 17 goals are also linked to the disaster management, disaster risk reduction. So I mentioned you three international agreements signed in 2015, and they have put up, they have mentioned, they have earmarked 15 years duration, T1, T2, T3 like that. T1 is 1 to 2 years, T2 is about 3 to 5 years, and T3 is up to 2030. So in T1, T2, T3, what are the mitigation measures? What are the preparedness measures you have to take up in the district, state, and national level? They are monitoring across the globe. Actually, every country's performance is measured in the NDMIS, National Disaster Management Information System, and ranking the country in terms of losses and damages, economic losses, infrastructure losses, loss of life, injuries for lakh population, like that. These are the targets fixed under the disaster risk reduction in SFDRR, Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. Sustainable development goals are dependent on SFDRR because disaster, if you do not reduce the disaster risk, poverty, hunger, health, well-being, education, all of them will be affected, and therefore there is a direct relationship between the achievement of the sustainable development goals and disaster risk reduction and climate change impact and its reduction. So therefore, there is a very good coherence between the Paris Agreement, Sustainable Development Goals, and Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So this preparedness is necessary, mitigation is necessary, prevention is necessary every year. So you have to revise it. And one is before the disaster, these three elements, other is post-disaster activities. That is why I draw the line here. So all of you are clear now? Why
Yes,
cycle is necessary? Can I ask a simple question now? What are the three international agreements that are signed in 2015 for managing the global affairs? Whether it is climate or it is sustainable development or disaster risk reduction. So I just now mentioned what are those three agreements? Can you mention one of them?
Paris Agreement,
Okay.
Sendai Framework, and Sustainable Development Goal System.
So when to achieve them? Which is the time horizon?
2030.
Very good. So all the three of them are called, three of them together called 2030 agenda. Okay. Next. So this is the global evidence here. You can see here. By seeing this graph, can you infer something? Can you infer something? Hydrometeorological disasters. It is about number of meteorological disasters reported globally. You know, hydrometeorological disasters are mainly due to climate change also, many times. Cyclones, cloud burst, glacial burst, etc., heat waves, drought, flood, all of them are hydrometeorological disasters, like flood, drought, and storms. If these three disasters are increasing almost every year. You can see up to this point, they were all stable. Okay. 90 up to 99 or 98. After 98, what happened here? They're suddenly rising. You can see here. The hydrometeorological disasters are rising. In 2000, what is the number of disasters? Suddenly they are about 489. Exactly. Around 389, sorry. 389 disasters corresponding to the floods, droughts, and storms have happened in just 1 year in 2000. If the average is only about, if we say average is only about how much it is during the last 91 to 98 up to 2000, the last 10 years, up to 99, it is only about around 200, 220, 2030 only. But suddenly it has increased to 389 in 2000. So what is the reason maybe why meteorological disasters are increasing suddenly? Can anybody tell me the reason?
Because of human beings' activities, sir.
Huh?
Human beings promoting the hydrometeorological disaster.
How?
Because of over mining, next deforestation.
So this is a global phenomena. Hydrometeorological disasters are happening due to global warming and climate change. That is the reason why suddenly they are rising. What is the temperature rise in 2023-24? The hottest year is 23-24 in the history of the planet. The hottest, warmest year is 23-24. The temperature already rose to 1.2 degrees above the pre-industrial temperature. Pre-industrial temperature means about 1850 before that. Now the temperature rose about 1.2 degrees over and above the average temperature of the pre-industrial era. What happened now after rising 1.2 degrees in the global temperature? Why not
Rising of
more number of
yeah.
meteorological disasters are happening? Why not disaster happened very recently? Over 470 mm rainfall reported in 48 hours. In Bangalore also we have 670 mm rainfall in one of the zones. Kodagu in Karnataka received about 250 mm, 200 mm rainfall in one day rainfall. So if this kind of rainfall happens in one day, landslides will happen, flood will also happen. Almost all the buildings will experience flooding, and most of the infrastructure will be damaged. Environment also be damaged. River courses will change their pattern, flow pattern. So that is why these extreme weather events are becoming very common and severe due to the climate change and global warming. Okay, clear? So I will not go into that. You can see here. So in order to reduce these severe events, what is the global agreements are telling? Recently in Azerbaijan, there was a conference, climate conference, COP28, COP27, COP26, like that, every year there is a conference of parties on climate change. They are going there and conducting, all countries will participate, and they'll decide how to reduce the carbon emissions, GHG emissions, and bring it to net zero. So in these countries, they have decided. You can see this blue one. Can you see this blue one? What are these countries actually? European countries. Scandinavian countries are there here. And here also. Then this maybe Bhutan, this country. They have set the target of before 2050, they will achieve net zero GHG emission target. What about this one, pink color? After 2050, they have decided that, country, our India is also there in this. Okay, we will be achieving by 2070. We have mentioned in the agreement that we will be achieving net zero emissions by 2070. 2050 after target year is 2050 as a target area, yellow color, all of them have decided. Okay. This is a global, why I am talking about GHG emissions, because GHG emissions are increasing. China is producing maximum emissions, about 12,000, more than 12,000 million tons every year, GHG emissions. And America is second in rank, 6,000 something. India is about 2,700 something million tons. These three countries are on the top list actually in terms of producing greenhouse gas emissions. Okay. So this is the reason why global warming is happening, and every country is doing what now. So yesterday there was a Invest Karnataka in the budget also. Finance Minister has announced a lot of investment in the renewable source of energy like solar, wind, hydrogen mission, solar mission, water mission, etc. etc. There are 8 missions in the National Climate Action Plan, and they are implementing seriously across the country by the states also. So funds are being invested by both by the state government as well as central government for implementing projects, large scale projects on production of energy by implementing renewable energy projects like solar, wind, hydropower, etc. So that is why they are doing this, because our country wants to achieve 50% of the energy consumption from renewable sources only. That is what we have decided by 2030. Another only 4-5 years are left to achieve 50% energy production only by renewable sources like solar and wind, etc. So 500 gigawatts they have fixed the target by 2030. So already about 300, 200 to 300 gigawatts we have already achieved. In the next 5 years, I think we are going to achieve 500 gigawatts. Therefore, they are investing more money in the renewable sources of energy, and not only by the state government, but also by the central government also. So this is the status actually, because you should know that what is happening globally as well as in the country. So what are the disasters happening in India? The Indian subcontinent is among the world's most disaster prone. So all these disasters are happening here. You can see here. Severity index in the last 50 years in India. So what are the important disasters in India now? Flood is there. Then earthquake is there.
Biological disaster.
They are also there. But these are epidemics are there here. You can see here. Pest and diseases. You just now mentioned, they come under pest diseases and then epidemics. Okay. So what are the other disasters? Landslides are there. Tornado is there, not in India, but in some only very small magnitude. Thunderstorms are there, hailstorms, epidemics, forest fires, pest and diseases, cyclones, drought, earthquake, flood. If I ask a question, what is the area prone to earthquake in India and in Karnataka? Can you tell me? 55% of our area is vulnerable to earthquake. In Karnataka specifically, 22% of our Karnataka state geographical area is vulnerable to moderate risk of earthquakes. Moderate zone. Up to 6.9 in the Richter scale ಆಗಬಹುದು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ, in Karnataka state. What is the drought in Karnataka? 80% of our area is vulnerable to drought. Cyclone moderate risk in Karnataka. These are there everywhere, pest and disease. Forest fires, about 5,000 hectares of land was 5,000 acres of land was engulfed in fire recently, last 2 years back. Epidemics, everything is there here in Karnataka, India also. Hailstorms, very severe in northern Karnataka recently, last about 3 years back in 2014 also, and even recently also, 2018-19. Thunderstorms are there here also. Tornado, I don't report very severe tornadoes. Landslide is there in 23 taluks in Karnataka state. We have classified them as landslide prone areas. 23 taluks, particularly Western Ghats and coastal districts in Karnataka. So this is 103 taluks were flood affected last year in 2019. Okay. This is the status in India as well as Karnataka as far as disaster vulnerability is concerned. Are you clear now? What is the status of disasters in India? How much area is vulnerable to what type of disaster? You must know about it, because whenever you take a class to the students or others, you must know this particular statistics. Therefore, I mentioned it. What about this one? The past disasters happened in the country. So I told you, just now, Latur earthquake, I had gone there in September 30th. The Latur earthquake was only 6.3, 6.4 on the Richter scale, but about 15 to 20,000 people died in that. Uttarkashi earthquake, then 97 Jabalpur earthquake, Chamoli earthquake, then Bhuj earthquake in 2001, January 26th. It was about 6.7 actually, 6.7, and we have mentioned is 6.9. So again, about 20,000 people died in that incident. Tsunami in 2004, avalanche, severe floods every year, Himachala, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and 2005 floods. Then severe droughts every year, every 2 to 3 years, and severe droughts are happening. In Karnataka, every year there is a drought. At least 50% of the taluks will be declared as drought affected in Karnataka. So these are the different disasters across the country, important disasters. Not small disasters, but major disasters that have happened in Kerala, in tsunami, Tamil Nadu, cyclone, Latur earthquake, all of that. You can see here blue, yellow circles. Okay. I will send this PPT to Professor also. You can also go through that. You can use it also in your next presentations, whenever you make a presentation. This is Mumbai, Mumbai, you can see how it is. So completely inundated, submerged due to flood. Bangalore is also similar case last year, 2-3 years, 2-3 years. So all cities are being submerged during rainy season. Many reasons are there. Many of them are man-made reasons only. See how it is. You can see the people being stranded in water. We don't know when this is in the coming years. Maybe I think we are going to be in flood only, because climate change is inducing severe floods in most of the areas. La Nina impact is there now this year. So I think subsequently, if it continues, again we will be having heavy rainfall. So releases from the dams, and also in urban areas, there will be huge flooding as predicted by the globe. So this is a see how it is. You can see here Belagavi flood, completely Belagavi district flood it is. Almost all the lands were submerged in 2007. See how it is flooding. This is Konkan railway, how it is landslide. So due to landslide, this entire Konkan railway was. So what do you see now? So what do you see? You can see here in tsunami. This is the thing. 2004 tsunami. If you see this picture, who are the most vulnerable in such disasters? You can see only women, children, aged. So they are the most vulnerable during any disasters. This is a dilapidated scene of the tsunami. You can see here devastating. This is a slide actually, landslide in Uttarakhand. Landslide. Children burned to death in fire incident in school. Can you predict what is the site here? Name of the site? It is Kumbakonam in Tamil Nadu. In one of the schools, there was a fire, and because the children were just sitting in the classroom, teachers didn't instruct them to escape from the school, from the classroom, because they do not know do's and don'ts, teachers also. There was no disaster management plan in place. Nobody knew actually do's and don'ts during fire incident. What happened was all teachers ran away from the classrooms, classes and school, leaving the students inside the classroom. You know, the students will not, so small children will not go out of the classroom without the instruction from the teachers, class teachers. They were just sitting in the class only until the fire engulfed the entire building. So all of them died in that. 93 children. So whose mistake it is? Ignorance of the teachers led to the death of children. Okay, school children. It is our Maharani's college in Mysore. If we went there many times for the work of our why this disaster happened here. You can see the trees, roots, plants being growing there in the walls. This wall is basically, you can see the kind of wall here. It's a brick wall. The roots are there. I went to the terrace. A lot of leaves were there on the terrace. Leaves were just accumulated over a period of time. There was a huge rainfall, and all the water was stagnated in the roof on the terrace roof. On that fateful day, the terrace collapsed, but nobody was injured in the chemistry lab. If that was many students, if the students were there, then they would have experienced some injuries and deaths also. So this is the fate of the colleges also, universities and colleges. So we should see how to maintain the buildings, how to maintain the walls, roofs, and water should not stagnate there. If there are any cracks, we must arrest the cracks by asking the engineering department, etc. If you don't do that, if the principals and the teachers, if they don't take actions immediately, such disasters are bound to happen.